Good Thursday evening. I'm Chief. Showers, thunderstorms that are going to be moving into the area tomorrow, but also some very, very warm temperatures too. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of a severe thunderstorm risk as we look forward to your Friday. There's going to be a couple rounds of storms moving through, but we're just about a day and a half to 2 days away from being free of this weather pattern. So as we look forward to the upcoming weekend, we're going to see showers coming to an end on Saturday, and then the rest of the weekend actually looks pretty good. And then early next week, the warmth, it looks like it's going to be sticking around too, at least for a little while. I know a lot of folks are really looking forward to St. Patrick's Day weekend here in the city, which of course is March 14th. The St. Patrick's Day holiday itself is of course on the 17th, but the city is going to be celebrating that the weekend prior to, and we're keeping a very close eye on weather conditions. At this point, it looks like we could be potentially looking at a little bit of a cool down leading into that weekend, but there is hope that we could warm things up by that Saturday again. So let's begin to dive in. I want to show you a couple maps here with the overall setup that we've had today. So if you were out and about at all today, you probably noticed that it was gloomy. We had fog. We had temperatures that were relatively nice, depending on where you were at. Right at the lakefront, we were only in the 40s today, but most locations across the Chicagoland area ended up topping out in the 50s. And take a look at the temperature setup that we had today. It's not just here in the Chicagoland area that we've been seeing warmer than average temperatures. It's really the eastern 2/3 of the continental United States has been experiencing warmer than average conditions. And the reason for that is because we are under a ridge with the jet stream. So the jet stream, you have troughs, which is when it dips to the south, allowing that cooler Canadian air to pour in. And then you have ridges, which is when you're able to kind of tap into that warmer air out of the south. That's what we have right now. And watch as I advance this map into the day tomorrow. What you're going to notice is that the trough over the western half of the United States is going to become a little more pronounced. So it's going to get colder out in the west, but then that's also going to help the ridge build in the east, meaning that that warmer air is going to begin to pool up underneath of it. So tomorrow's temperatures, I mean, it's warming up in a really big way. Today we saw our highs for a lot of us in the 50s, but tomorrow I think we're going to be right around 70 degrees. And it's a lot of folks across the United States getting in on that warmth because of that ridge. So that northerly wind flow that's over the Pacific Northwest, that's keeping the colder air in place, and also kind of rainy out west as well. Zooming things in and talking even a little bit more about the warmth. So we're talking big warmth for tomorrow. Where you see that pink magenta shading there, highlighting over the Chicagoland area, over into portions of southern Michigan, the Ohio River Valley, that's where we could potentially be experiencing record warm temperatures. And tomorrow's record warm temperature at O'Hare, that's where we get our official reading for the Chicago area, is 70 degrees. That was set back in 2000 for the date of March 6th. And tomorrow, I think we're going to at least tie it. At this point, I'm going with a high temperature of 70 degrees for tomorrow. So that's going to put us close to about 25 to 30 degrees above average for this time of the year. So very warm conditions going into your day tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, here's what you can expect. Go ahead and pick out your location. This is your high temperature that you are expected to reach for tomorrow. Running a little bit cooler at the lakefront. Will be around 67 degrees at the Chicago lakefront, 64 in Waukegan, and then notice closer to the Wisconsin state line, likely in the 60s as well. But the southern sections of our Fox Chicago viewing area, near and south of I-80, easily, I think, make it into the low to mid 70s going into tomorrow afternoon. So it's going to be a really stunning day, and hopefully, we can keep that severe weather at bay. So this is your severe weather outlook for today. There's ongoing storms that are out in some of the plains states right now. Where you see that orange shading showing up, that's an enhanced risk from the Storm Prediction Center. So that is a level 3 out of 5. And whenever you see the enhanced risk, that's when you could be dealing with some pretty serious conditions out there. So numerous severe thunderstorms going to be possible in places like the Panhandle of Texas, over into southwestern Oklahoma. We're already seeing several severe thunderstorm warnings at this hour, and this is all associated with the same exact storm system that's going to be impacting our region going into your Friday. So all week long, we've been kind of flagging the potential for strong, maybe even severe thunderstorms right here at home. And it's because of this stronger storm system that's developing as that jet stream that I was just letting you know about, the troughs and the ridges. Think of the one that was looking like this at the very beginning of the show. As that trough begins to work its way to the east, there's a low pressure system coming along with it, a strong cold front. And whenever you have these stronger storm systems and a hard divide between that cold air and the warmer air, that's when you have a really good recipe for seeing some of these strong to severe thunderstorms. So that's what's going on out there tonight. Watch how this begins to march its way off toward the east tomorrow. So this is your severe weather outlook for Friday. And you'll notice that the worst of it is still expected to be off toward our west and our southwest, where you see that enhanced risk. Again, that's the orange shading showing up here. But for the Chicagoland area, we are included in a slight risk, which is a level 2 across some of our western counties, northwestern counties. So it's really going to be something to watch. And then that threat should begin to lessen the farther east that these storms go. And the reason for that is because we're going to lose that diurnal heating. And what do I mean by that? Diurnal heating, that's the heating that you have during the day. So as the sun goes down, the overall temperature is going to drop, and that's going to give us a little bit less energy to work with for these storms going into tomorrow evening. Now, bouncing things to the south and the east just a little bit, where you see this darker kind of blob of green that's stretching from Texas all the way up to at least the southwestern portion of the Ohio River Valley. That's noting the flooding potential with some of these storms tomorrow. We're not overly concerned about flooding here at home. In fact, I think our activity that we have moving through tomorrow is actually going to be very scattered in nature. Not everyone is even going to see those thunderstorms tomorrow, so it should be pretty spotty in nature. However, any of those storms that do develop, they're going to be working with ingredients that could potentially make them severe. So let's get a closer look to home here. Locations that you see from Evanston, the southeastern sections of Lake County, Illinois, all the way down to the south suburbs, northwest Indiana, all considered to be in a marginal risk from the Storm Prediction Center, and that is a level 1 of 5, meaning isolated severe storms are possible. But the threat gets a little bit higher for locations that are off to the west, where you see that slight risk category. So places like McHenry County, most of Lake County, DeKalb, Kane County, the western half of DuPage County, even northwestern Cook County included in this, and then cutting all the way back into LaSalle, Kendall, and Grundy. That's where we have that slight risk, meaning scattered severe thunderstorms are going to be possible. So I've shown this over the last couple of days just because, it's been a while since we've had severe thunderstorms in our region. This is going to be kind of our first go around here of the season. So I always want to give you a refresher on what these categories mean. So those maps that I was just showing you, those are put out by the Storm Prediction Center. And essentially what they do every single day, whenever there's a storm potential, they will rank the risk on a scale from 1 through 5. So fortunately for us, we're on the lower end of this scale, and the greens and the yellows, again, marginal and slight risk, are the names of those categories, meaning that isolated to scattered severe thunderstorms are going to be possible. And typically when you're in that category, we're not seeing long-lived, really, really intense storms. What we're seeing are short-lived or very pulsy in nature storms where they flare up and they go severe and then they begin to fizzle out. So I think that's going to be the type of strong to severe thunderstorms that we end up seeing tomorrow if we do indeed reach that potential. So let's talk about the risks now, because we've already mentioned that there is a possibility of those severe storms, but the primary hazards at this point look to be a damaging wind risk. And you'll see here that for locations that were originally highlighted in that slight risk category, again, level 2 is where we're seeing the 15% wind risk with this particular product here that you're looking at. All of the brown shading, that's a 5% risk. So we should overall see those storms weakening the farther east that they go. And we're also going to be on the lookout for hail, but I don't think hail is one of our major concerns. There's a small risk that we could be seeing some larger hailstones. And severe hail, by the way, is a hailstone that's about 1 inch in diameter. Severe wind risk is when it's over 60 miles per hour. But something else that we're going to have to watch very closely, and it's all going to come down to the timing, is if we have a tornado risk for tomorrow. So this product, again, coming from the Storm Prediction Center, shows the majority of our area in a 2% tornado risk. And you're probably thinking, okay, that's not all that high, right? Forget about it. But what you should take away from this is that the risk isn't zero. So make sure you have ways of receiving those severe weather alerts. And again, I know 2% sounds low, but what this actually means is if you were to choose any point of your choice throughout this area that's highlighted in green, within 25 miles of the point that you choose is a 2% tornado risk. So if you add that up over the entire viewing area, the probability, it exists, right? So that's what we're trying to convey here. Make sure you have ways of getting those severe weather alerts. If you haven't done so already, by the way, you can always download our Fox 32 weather app, because there's some settings in that app that if you choose, you can get alerted for your location. And then as soon as those alerts are issued by the National Weather Service, that is pushed directly to your app. You'll see that come through, and you'll know essentially when there's severe thunderstorms or even tornado warnings that are heading your direction. So a good thing to have going into this severe weather season. Now, kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, and again, just kind of trying to get you prepared for the severe weather season. A lot of folks ask me whenever we're going into severe weather season or a big weather day, where am I supposed to go in my home if I don't have a basement? So if there is a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning that has been issued for your location, the safest place to be is always going to be in your basement. But if you don't have a basement, an interior room of your home, away from doors, away from windows, away from those exterior walls, is going to be your best bet. And for a lot of homes, and just the way that they're set up around here, it's likely going to end up being a bathroom for you. And that's actually a good thing, because bathrooms in the walls, think about all the piping that goes through the walls. So that can actually provide you with some extra protection from any projectiles if there's high winds, or if there is indeed a tornado that's coming through your location. But again, low-end chance of tornadoes tomorrow. I'm not overly concerned about it, but just know that there is a chance, and it is that time of the year that we really have to pay attention to these storms moving through. So just for those of you that were curious minds want to know that if you don't have a basement, an interior room of your home is always going to be your best option. Satellite and radar. Things are quiet for now. We have a cold front off to our east, and then we have another warm front off to our west. And it's that warm front that's going to first trigger some showers and thunderstorms for us going into early tomorrow. So we're going to start to see scattered activity likely developing mid to late morning tomorrow. And then that's going to last into the early afternoon. So watch as I set this in motion on Futurecast. You'll see that warm front move through. And I know everyone's been talking about those really warm temperatures for tomorrow. Yes, record warm temperatures are going to be possible, but it could take a while for it to get here, because it's going to take that warm front rolling through. So locations along the northeastern Illinois lakefront, northwest Indiana, we may be stuck in the 40s and 50s for a good chunk of the day until this warm front clears the area. And then we're going to see those temperatures very quickly soaring into the upper 60s to low 70s. But don't be surprised if at midday you're stepping out, hoping to take lunch outside, get some fresh air, maybe on your lunch break or anything like that. It may not be super warm just yet. A lot of us aren't going to hit those highs until mid to late afternoon, going into the evening hours. But back to the storm potential here. You can see that we start to see some storms building in as early as about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Those are going to breeze through, likely coming to an end by the early afternoon hours. And then we may even break into some sunshine. If that happens, that's actually going to increase our severe weather risk, because it's going to give us a little more heat and instability to work with. So there is a chance that we could be seeing these storms firing up during the afternoon hours. And if anything develops during the late afternoon, early evening hours, that's the round that I'm going to be a little more concerned about when it comes to the severe weather chances. And then at night, we're going to have our cold front sweeping through. By early Saturday morning, we're still waking up to at least a couple spotty showers around the region, but then we're going to begin to dry out. We should quickly start to see some sunshine, so that's wonderful news. However, we are on the backside of a cold front, so that's going to cool us down. Your temperatures on Saturday, we're probably going to be waking up in the 60s. It'll be a very mild morning, but then we will be falling into the 50s during the day. So just kind of be prepared for that if you're checking out the weather, making your plans for Saturday, that the afternoon hours will be colder than what we're experiencing during the morning. Fortunately, it's going to be coming along with quite a bit of sunshine, and then we should keep that around going into your Sunday as well. Lots of sunshine expected. Coming up in about 2 minutes from now, I'm going to show you how much rain you can expect, and then also where the drought conditions are, because the latest drought monitor was just dropped this morning. We'll see you in 2 minutes. Welcome back. So we have rain potential sticking around in the forecast until Saturday morning. And if you're wondering how much you can expect, it's not a ton, but it's enough to hopefully help move the needle when it comes to the drought monitor. So futurecast rainfall running us all the way through the end of the day on Saturday. And most of us are going to see the rainfall coming to an end completely by about mid to late morning on Saturday. But in that time, notice how many of us are going to be picking up around a quarter inch of rain, if not a little bit less than that. But we could potentially be seeing as much as around an inch to an inch and a quarter across the far northwestern sections of the Chicagoland area, places like DeKalb up through northwestern Kane County into McHenry County, and then maybe even portions of northern Lake County, Illinois, could be coming close to 1 inch. And a lot of this is really going to be depending on the storms that we pick up tomorrow. So rain around here, it's going to be a good thing because take a look at this map here. What this is showing you is the percentage of normal rainfall that we have received over the last 30 days. And you'll notice that there's a lot of us that are coming up at only around 10, 11%. So we are way below average when it comes to our amount of rainfall or amount of snowfall that we've received in the last 30 days or so. So as far as the drought monitor goes, looking ahead to the growing season, we're of course getting a little bit closer to that now that we are in meteorological spring. So this is the time of year that we really start monitoring things very closely again. As farmers are getting ready for planting season, we could really use at least a little bit more moisture around here. So the drought monitor, this is the latest one that dropped this morning, and it's changed ever so slightly, but not by a ton. And what I mean by that is the abnormally dry conditions that you see showing up in yellow, they've kind of been expanded a little bit closer to the lakefront. So it now includes a large portion of Kane County, a decent portion of the northwestern portion of DuPage County. Northwestern Cook County is now considered to be abnormally dry. And then the moderate drought that sweeps through LaSalle County down into southern Kankakee County, most of Newton and Jasper County considered to be in a moderate drought. And then it gets worse the more that you go to the south or the southwest. So in some portions of LaSalle County, if we go ahead and zoom things in here, you see that orange shading through the southern panhandle of LaSalle County? That's a severe drought. So it's going to take a while to kind of dig out of this. And then it's even worse farther to the south, where you see that red. That's where we have an extreme drought status, and that's actually been expanded just a little bit in some portions of the area near Champaign, and then cutting through north central Indiana over into Ohio. But I wanted to show you a map here that shows the rainfall that we've picked up over the last 3 days or so, because there's been quite a few storm systems that have been parading through the Ohio River Valley. And it's been a good thing. So some of those heavier totals are lining up at least close to where those extreme drought conditions are. So hopefully, you know, when the next drought monitor comes out and all of this rainfall is able to kind of seep into the ground, hopefully we can see some improvements downstate in central Indiana, central Illinois, because over the last 3 days, some areas have actually seen as much as 3 to 6 inches of rainfall. So we've had very, very beneficial rain over the last couple of days. Now, here at home, really hasn't been all that much. We've had gloomy days and we've had some drizzle. We've had some very light rain showers moving through, mainly across northwest Indiana, but the majority of the region has only seen about a trace. So not even a measurable amount of rainfall in many cases. Originally, when we think back to about 4 or 5 days ago, it was looking like we were going to see a very, very rainy week ahead. And we've had the cloud cover, but the worst of it, the heavier stuff, that ended up all tracking south of us in that region that I just showed you. So for a lot of us, it's only been a trace. So any sort of rainfall that we can pick up tomorrow from those thunderstorms, that's going to be a really good thing. All right, here's the live view from our shed camera. Typically from this view, you can see our stunning skyline of the Chicago area. Not so much today. So we have dense fog that's been out there on and off throughout the day, and you can tell that you can't even see any of the buildings here. You can see Lakeshore Drive, but that's about all. So the fog that is near the lakeshore, that has been moving inland. We have a very, very light easterly breeze pushing that inland. And because of this, we have a dense fog advisory that's going to remain in effect. So let's run you through a couple of the counties here. For those of you in Lake County, Illinois, we have our dense fog advisory remaining in effect until 6 a.m. tomorrow. So again, this could be impacting your Friday morning commute, especially for those of you closer to the lake. And then in Cook County, this also is staying in effect until 6 a.m. This is for central and northern Cook County, and then rounding the lake into Lake and Porter counties. That's going to remain in effect only until 9 p.m. this evening for Lake and Porter. But in LaPorte County, just about 15-20 minutes ago or so, we actually had a dense fog advisory that was issued until 9 a.m. tomorrow. So for those of you in LaPorte County, central and northern Cook County, and Lake County, Illinois, that's where we have the potential of that dense fog advisory remaining in effect through your morning commute on Friday. So kind of build it into your timeline that you could be needing some extra time to get to where you're going Friday morning. Your daily almanac today, we topped out at 50 degrees. Average is 43, so we were above average today. Record high temperature was 75 degrees, set back in 1983. Record low, it looks a little bit different than the last couple of days, doesn't it? So this is the first time in a while that we've actually pulled up the daily almanac and seen a record low temperature around 0 or above. So that goes to show you we're moving in the right direction here. And that record low temperature that was set way back in 1873 didn't come close to that today. We only dropped down to about 39 degrees for our overnight low. Last night, an average is in the upper 20s, so we did pretty well last night. And tonight we're going to do the same thing. Very, very mild conditions are expected. High temperatures elsewhere. We only hit 44 in Waukegan, 51 at the Chicago lakefront, 49 in Gary, 55 in Joliet. Same thing in Morris. Made it to 54 in LaSalle and 56 degrees in Rensselaer. And temperatures now, we're definitely running cooler at the lakefront. So we started this trend during the afternoon into the evening hours as those winds began to move in from the east. It's a very light breeze, but it's enough to make a pretty big difference when it comes to our temperatures. Again, for us to be at close to 8:30 at night and temps are still in the 50s in some portions of the area, that's very unusual for this time of the year. So we're very, very mild. But the reason that we're so much colder at the lakefront is, of course, because of Lake Michigan. So Lake Michigan water temperatures right now are estimated to be in the low to mid 30s. So, of course, that's making a really big difference when it comes to your temperatures out there this evening, now that we're starting to see some of that cooler air moving in. The next 12 hours around here, temperatures are going to be in the lower 40s for your overnight low. And just like the past several nights, it's going to be very mild, and then temperatures are just going to remain steady. So we have the cloud cover overhead. We have the fog. So it's kind of another soupy start to the day tomorrow. High temperatures are going to be right around 70 degrees on your Friday. Again, that is record territory because the record warm temperature at O'Hare for March 6th, which of course is tomorrow's date, is 70 degrees. That was set back in 2000. So I think we're going to be right around that record high. And then we drop to the 60s, falling into the 50s Saturday afternoon. But then notice even into early next week, things are staying extremely warm for this time of the year. We're going to be in the upper 60s to near 70 degrees again by Monday, and we'll likely keep that going right on into Tuesday. Here's your temperature outlook put out by the Climate Prediction Center for March 11th through the 15th. And you'll notice that we're not really shaded in the orange, but we're not shaded in the blue yet either, which means that we're likely looking at temperatures kind of evening out and getting a little bit closer to average. So after those really warm days that we have on Monday and Tuesday of next week, we should start to kind of even the playing field, get back to normal for a few days. And then there's a chance going into your St. Patrick's Day all the way toward March 19th that we may actually be trending a little bit cooler than average. So we could see a little bit of a pattern flip-flop here going into the next few weeks. Next 10 days, very warm for the next week, dropping down to the 40s and 50s by the middle of next week. But there is hope for those of you that are kind of planning ahead for all of the St. Patrick's festivities that are going to be taking place in Chicago. Not this weekend, but next weekend on the 14th and 15th. It looks like we could potentially see a brief warm up into the 60s again. Yes, we're very far away from this, more than a week, but it's going to be something to watch, and hopefully we can hold on to those warmer temperatures because that sure would be nice for all of the parades, the river dying. It would be really nice if we can hold on to those 60s. For tonight, 42 degrees for your overnight low. Remember, we do have the dense fog advisories remaining in effect near the lakefront, except for those of you that are in Newton and Jasper counties. That's going to come to an end at 9 p.m. tonight. Your 3-day forecast, 70 degrees tomorrow, then 64 expected on Saturday. Showers come to an end, and the rest of your weekend will be sunny. Coming up next, we're going to check in with Dawn over in the newsroom. We'll be right back.